let's take a look at question 13.11 that deals with epoxide nomenclature, so 13.11a. If we want to start by naming this as an epoxy compound, you can see the longest carbon chain has 1, 2, 3 carbons in it like this, so this would be a 1,2 epoxy propane for 3 carbons. And you can see the only substituent we have on here is another CH3, so that's a methyl group, so it's going to be 2-methyl 1,2 epoxy propane. Now if I want to label this compound as an oxirane, well, let me just erase these numbers here. If I want to label this compound as an oxirane, obviously the oxygen is going to be number 1. And then to decide between the other 2 carbons, well, this is obviously going to be carbon number 2 because it's got 2 substituents, and the other one has no substituents. So that means it would be 2,2-dimethyl oxirane, like that. All right, moving on. If we take a look at B, the next one here, if we wanted to name this as an epoxy compound, so if we want to name this as an epoxy compound, the longest carbon chain that we're going to have is 1,2 carbons. So it's going to be a 1,2 epoxy ethane. And on carbon number 1, I have 2 phenyl groups, so it's going to be a 1,1 diphenyl, 1,2 epoxy ethane, like that. Okay, and if I want to label it as an oxirane, it's pretty close, or it's very similar to the first example, where, let me just erase these numbers first. If I label this as an oxirane, I'm going to start 1, 2, 3, because carbon 2 has substituents on it, and in that case it would be a 2,2 diphenyl oxirane, like that. All right, and the next one, it's kind of difficult to name this as an oxirane and give, the cyclohexyl ring a substituent, or name it as a substituent rather. So I think the easiest way to name this one is just to say that it's 1,2 epoxy cyclohexane, like that. All right, so there we go. That solves those 3 problems, and I hope you find that somewhat useful.